that more natural one is often more efficient, you know? But, so that's my view on that.
Yeah, from your last little bit on from his question, you said that, or you quoted from someone in the ag industry that we should not feed the world with industrial animal agriculture. So I was wondering what your take was on how we can help reduce poverty throughout the world.
Okay. Well, and they said that we should use industrial animal agriculture, and I say we shouldn't use it. I think the most efficient way to feed the population is through more localized food production systems, farmers markets, CSAs, community-supported agriculture, where there's more of a connection between the producer and the consumer. And then you have less food miles, things are traveling less distance, and plant foods instead of animal foods, because it takes far fewer acres to grow plant foods than animal foods. I mean, that's the basic premise, really, that, you know, when you're eating plants, you need far fewer resources. And they also keep longer, you know. Some plant foods have to be refrigerated and so on, but not nearly as much as meat, you know. So it just makes sense, you know, and certain plant foods can keep for a long time, you know, gourds and so on. And then we can, you know, canning, and there's techniques that humans have used for generations that have worked. And I think we need to go back to some of those. But, you know, meat doesn't have to be in the equation.
In third world countries, the trend is once they have reached met their nutritional needs, then the people are going to want to eat more meat. That's just how it is, because they have a lot of rice, they have a lot of grains, and it's just they want to eat more meat. That's what's next on the scale of, what is it? Is when you meet your nutritional needs and you've met your caloric intake, then you're allowed to choose more when you have more available, and they're going to want to eat. They're going to want to eat meat.
Well, I don't necessarily buy that. And, you know, once you reach your caloric needs, then you eat more, and then you get obese. I mean, that's one of the assumptions, exactly, that as people become more affluent, they're going to want more meat. I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, if you look at our country, a lot of people who are very affluent are going to Whole Foods and aren't eating meat. You know, so I don't think that that's necessarily the case. It's certainly something that agribusiness says a lot. It's certainly something that is being used to get more export enhancement money to promote meat consumption around the world. But I don't think that it's a given. Yeah.
Have you been to a third world country?
I've been to India. I've been through Europe, which isn't third world, but yes, I have. But any other?
Can I give a comment? I'm from the third world country, by the way. So a lot of people also follow religion there, and that might just prohibit them from eating meat because it's their belief system. Okay. And in the U.S., I've lived in the U.S. 10 years now. Actually, I am not even Indian that much as I'm Pennsylvanian. But there is a general information prevalence that protein needs to be there in every meal, and protein needs to come from animal protein or something. And this was going to bring me to my next question, which will pop in a second. But a lot of this protein in these countries, and I don't know much about China, but I've spoken to a lot of people, they eat meat only once or twice a week there because of the cost thing. And in India, they get a lot of the proteins from legumes, which are like the beans and the, you know, those kind of things. So, I mean, I don't know. Depending on how the industry goes there, things might change. But again, if there is a movement which, you know, informs people of the choices to choose from, it might continue remaining like, you know, a bean-fed kind of population. Now, my question was going to be, you spoke a lot about animals. What do you think about this? It's a 4-letter word, starts with F, fish. What do you think, what kind of role does it play in today?
So what do I think about fish is the question. Well, I think fish, you know, have feelings too, and have, you know, as there's been more sentient research, there's been cognitive abilities that have been discerned, and again, they have feelings. So, and we don't need to eat them. We don't need to kill them. And what's happened in recent decades is wild fish populations have been decimated through overfishing, through trawling, and so on. And as wild fish populations have been decimated, aquaculture has now taken root, which is like factory farming of fish. And oftentimes the factory farmers or the aquaculture people, the industry people, will say that this helps save wild fish populations. But in fact, lots of the wild fish that are caught that can't be sold for human consumption are used as feed in these aquaculture operations. So they're all very much linked. So it's a big problem, and I don't think eating fish is necessary or healthy or humane or environmentally sustainable in the long run. So that's my view on fish.
I'm curious about the connection between the obesity rate in the United States and eating consuming meat. I personally believe that the biggest contributor to obesity in the United States is actually the inactivity of Americans, which has decreased exponentially over the decades, as well as portion sizes. You look at things like potato chips and French fries, which are made of potatoes, and even cooked in peanut oil, are extremely terrible for your body. And those aren't animal products. I also wanted to add that I have a friend who's been a vegan for 7 years, and she's, I don't know exactly, but she's pretty borderline obese, and she wonders why that she hasn't lost weight as a vegan. She may just be overweight. I don't know exactly how much she weighs. Not that close to her. I have seen her eat, and I would be willing to guess, and I haven't told this to her face, that because of her portion sizes. She eats way too much as a person, and her food's delicious. She's a great chef, but I don't see a connection between obesity and eating meat in a general. Just as I look at it as an imbalance of what you're eating and a lack of physical activity.
I think part of that is true. A lack of physical activity is a real problem. But I think if you look at our country, again, epidemiologically, and the amount of meat we eat, fast food hamburgers, for example, cheeseburgers, that does contribute to obesity. And when you talk about like corn syrup and other sort of unhealthy foods, that is also linked to the meat industry because these are byproducts of corn, which is a big feed product, a feed crop. So the points you raise, I think have some relevance, but I still believe, and I think the science bears it out, that, too many fatty animal foods, ice cream, cheese, hamburgers, and so on, are pretty bad for us. And we're seeing the consequences in our children today. But it's complex. There's various other factors, but meat is a big part of that. So.
Well, thanks for coming out today. It's been really informative. I was wondering, is there sources where I could get dairy products and egg products that treat animals humanely in the course of production?
Well, I unfortunately can't say there are. In order for a cow to produce milk, she's impregnated and gives birth. The calf is taken away immediately at birth. And the cow is milked. So there are not sanctuaries for all those calves. So they're usually raised to become milking cows, or they go to slaughter as veal or as beef. And in the case of the egg industry, theoretically, one could have eggs if they had, say, a rescued chicken that was laying the eggs. But in commercial production, the animals are usually seen as production units, even on small farms. And when the chickens are no longer profitable, they're often sent to slaughter. Now, there is one place you can get humane meat, though, and that's roadkill, for anybody who's interested in that. But, but the bottom line is we don't need to eat meat, or dairy or eggs. But in the case of egg-laying hens, there may be a way where, again, if you have a chicken that you're going to let live their life out and they're laying eggs, you could probably eat those eggs and there wouldn't be an ethical issue, I would say.
What about cage-free egg?
Oh, yes. What about cage-free and free-range and all these things? Unfortunately, a lot of these labels sound a lot better than they are. Cage-free basically means they're just not in the battery cages, but they can still be confined in warehouses by the thousands. In the case of free-range, the animals have to have access to the outdoors, is what it says. Now, access to the outdoors sounds okay, but access is not defined. So what it could mean, and what it does mean in many cases, is a big warehouse with thousands of animals with a very small door going out